Wait, they don't look like mobsters. Those aren't mobsters. They're CEOs. They're all billionaires. This isn't the mob. This is the new mob of New York. Please tell me you recorded that.
So the billionaires are the new mob bosses of New York, and these billionaires could be our new suspects. Man, oh man, what an episode. This is what I like to call a good old-fashioned classic episode of Only Murders. It had the trio clicking on all cylinders with their incredible chemistry, the jokes were joking, the mystery was mystering, and the whole episode was just fantastic. Look, there's a lot to discuss about this third episode, so get out your ledgers because we got a murder to solve, full spoilers ahead. We kick things off with a fascinating history lesson about the iconic building. You see, back in the early 1910s, the rise of the automobile rendered the horses stables obsolete. But just a decade later, New York's mobsters, ever the entrepreneurs, found a more louder and more lucrative use of the space, and that was a secret casino. The decor, the fashion, it all changed over time, but one constant remained, and that is the shadowy, powerful presence of the mob. Cut to present day, in Charles, who always thought the Velvet Room was just a building rumor, he's now standing right in it. Meanwhile, upstairs, Oliver fills the crew in about the grim discovery of Nikki's dead body. A good old-fashioned cleaver to the chest seems to be the cause of death as of now, and in true Oliver fashion, he accidentally sneezes on the body, leaving a very unfortunate DNA sample on the mobster's corpse. What's a Broadway director to do with a contaminated dead body? Well, if you're Oliver, you put it in a laundry cart and you wheel it into Charles's apartment, much to Mabel and Charles's utter shock. Oliver claims he blacked out after the sneeze and thought bringing the body to Charles's was the best plan. Now, back in my breakdown of episode 1, I stated that I believe that Randall would die at some point this season because of the trailer showing someone who I thought was his body in this laundry cart, but that was all cleared up in this scene, and I'm glad that he's alive and hopefully he survives this season because I'm starting to come around to Randall as Lester's replacement. Now, Mabel instantly pieces together that whoever killed Nikki probably anticipated his body wouldn't be found until the morning. But her more pressing question is, why is Nikki's body so discolored? He looks to have been dead for a while, as our trio's immediate mission is to get Oliver's DNA off of Nikki's body and return the body to the cleaners before it opens in the morning. Now, it's interesting to think that whoever murdered Nikki wanted his body to be found, but wanted his body to be found at the dry cleaners. Could this be sending a message? Whoever did this could be saying that the business was dying, a literal dying business, so they literally let Nikki's dead body be their way to point that out. Like I stated in my episode 1 breakdown, I believe that the laundry business is being used as a front and was being used to do more than laundry, and that is laundering money for the casino. Now, as the trio meticulously check Nikki for missing fingers, which he has all 10 of them, they notice something green under his nails. It's the exact same color as the material found on the missing finger from episode 1. Now, Charles, with his surprising knowledge, identifies it as an F1 grade Lachlan felt, the kind used on the dealer's table in the Velvet Room. Now, this sparked a theory I have. A good felt helps with the toss of the cards, so did Nikki mess with the felt to cheat, assuring he won or that someone else could have lost? Did he scam the wrong person at the poker table and pay the ultimate price? To me, this feels like a huge piece of the puzzle. Now, talk about an internal struggle, Charles's existential crisis continues. Now, Nikki, or rather this somewhat ghost version of Nikki, starts chatting with Charles about his impending lonely death. These eerie conversations persist throughout this episode, and it's not new to Charles to have these odd conversations with the dead, but this season, it feels like death is truly closing in on him. Now, we know that Charles has escaped death throughout this entire series many times, but this time around, it feels more personal. Now, the trio tries to pinpoint Nikki's time of death and initially think that it might align with Lester's murder about a week ago, but the gardenia hasn't welted, suggesting a more recent demise. Now, the trio decides to take their murder solving to another level as they conduct their very first autopsy. Now, we know our trios are no experts, so determining the rigor mortis or the exact time of death isn't working out so easily for them. However, Mabel spots a white substance on his sleeve, and Oliver, our self-proclaimed cocaine expert, confidently declares that it's not. Maybe it's a paint substance. Another mystery for now, as they also notice rope marks on his wrist and a particular burn behind his ear. Now, taking a look at our murder board so far, and it's looking a little bit rough, not a lot to go off of, but hey, it's still early in the game. Now, with no real breakthroughs, Oliver suggests a dinner break, eyeing some leftover Chinese food. Now, as they wait for the leftover Chinese food to warm up, we see Oliver looks over the last text message he sent over to Lester, and they are very demanding. Now, this comes back into play later in this episode as Oliver attempts to do right by Randall, the new doorman. With no time to talk more about Oliver's narcissistic ways, as the suggestion to eat leftover freezer food gave Mabel the breakthrough they were looking for. What if the burns behind Nikki's ears was actually from a freezer? That actually would explain his discoloration and lack of decomposition. Is most likely that he was killed days ago, frozen, and is only now thawing. As Mabel checks his mouth and finds a critical clue, a piece of paper with the building's logo on it, which, based on episode 2 flashes, we know it came from Lester's ledger, as confirmed later in this episode. Now let's think about this in my connection with my theory about the felt. The person could have found out that Nikki screwed them over by discovering the ledger and how the numbers show that they've been manipulated for a very long time. So could they have confronted Nikki, and in the heat of the moment they shoved the paper in Nikki's mouth, they put a cleaver in his chest and murdered him? Right now, again, this is just a working theory, of course. Now, they say time flies when you're doing your first amateur autopsy, as it's now morning with only 14 minutes left to ditch the body at the cleaners. Now, en route, they confirm the paper is indeed from Lester's ledger, and they need the ledger from Randall, and Oliver, in the purest Oliver form, he just snatches it out of his hands and runs. Now, this leaves Mabel and Charles to deal with the body, as Mabel bumps into V, formerly known as Althea, her friend we briefly saw in episode 2. V is now a musical artist who has recently bought the penthouse in the building. A bit like a deflating balloon, V manages to bring Mabel's confidence back to Earth, asking if she still lives with her aunt. As Mabel proudly corrects her, stating that she has her own place in the building and has her own podcast. Now, V had no idea, and she finds her podcast at the 17th spot, leaving Mabel feeling a bit bummed comparing their lives. Now, this obviously gives us context to the flashback we see in episode 2, and we'll find out later that their relationship ended badly and that V brings out the worst in Mabel. Now, my question is, where has V been all these years, and what really happened between them? Now, I do find it odd that Mabel didn't know that her friend from the past is now some mega pop star, which makes me wonder if her name to fame is more recent. Could the new name change and her rise to fame be backed by some billionaires? Maybe one of them that we'll meet later. Meanwhile, we watch as Charles, in what I assume to be a camera-free zone of the cleaners, he clumsily tries to put Nikki's body back without leaving his own DNA everywhere. Now, dead Nikki recites Pablo Neruda's Death Alone to Charles, and just as he finishes, the police arrive. Now, it's clear that they were purposefully sent here to the cleaners to find the body. Now, one officer tells the other, just write it up like they said. Now, they, is that being used as pronouns, or are they referring to powerful people, perhaps the mob, who have the police in their pockets? Looks like my crooked police being involved and it being a cover-up back in my episode 1 breakdown is coming true, which now puts into question Lester's accidental death police report and maybe someone messing with the camera footage. Now, back in Mabel's apartment, the bad blood between her and V is confirmed, but the ledger holds more immediate answers. The missing page shows money accounts, poker names, and code names of birds, as they quickly realized Lester was keeping tabs on the high-stakes game. And guess what? A game is happening tonight. Now let's go back and talk about those bird names, which I think will be important to maybe identify characters that we may have met or haven't met so far this season. So we have here the brown-headed cowbirds, which are said to be parasites and killers of born and unborn baby birds. They're also said to be brood parasites that lays their eggs in nests of other birds. So let's say this is someone with a personality type of someone that's maybe abrasive and rude and just does what they want. We have the Eurasian jay, who is said to be able to imitate other birds and sounds. So let's keep an eye out for someone that can imitate people. We have the kakapo bird, which is very rare. There's only a total of 244 of them as of 2024. They're also said to be the heaviest living species of parrots in the world. So let's keep an eye out for someone that maybe looks pretty unique and also maybe heavyset. And last but not least, we have the bowerbirds. They're renowned for the unique courtship behavior where males build a structure and they decorate it with sticks and brightly colored objects and attempt to attract a mate. So to me, this sounds like someone that's eye candy, that's very attractive, and they like to attract people to them. So now with that in mind, was one or all four of these people named after birds responsible for Nikki's death? Now continuing that same thought, did they chase after Lester to get the detailed notes from his ledger? Now we watch as Oliver has this touching moment of growth and remorse for taking Lester for granted as he returns the ledger back to Randall. We see Oliver cheers Randall up, who's worried the building will fall apart without Lester and without completing his training, as Oliver tells Randall to forge his own path, to be his own person and not try to fill the shoes of Lester. As Oliver promises to help him with his training, but first he has to take a nap before the big spy mission. Now before the nap, we see Charles making a mysterious call. As he goes under the code name General Custer, an anonymous patient in some trial group receiving unknown doses of something. Now look, I've been covering this show for years, since the very beginning, and I don't recall this detail about Charles. What are these doses and how long has Charles been taking them and what is he taking them for? Is our beloved Charles secretly sick? Could this be some major reveal some point this season and some ongoing dance that he has with morality? Now, as we come to a close of this episode, it is now mission time as we end with our trio behind the bar, and in come some new players, the new mob of New York. Here we meet Sebastian Steed, aka Bash, a tech billionaire CEO. We have young billionaire Jay Flug, who's in the pharmaceutical business. And last but not least, Camilla White, a hotel empire titan. These are the new power players, the modern mob. But wait, we have one more little spicy nugget before we end, and that is they notice Jay has a bandage on his hand and he's missing a finger. Likely the very same finger the trio found with the shrimp in episode 1. So could these be the birds that Lester was referring to in his ledger? Are they the police were referring to earlier in the episode? Now, was it just me or did it appear like these billionaires, this was their first time visiting the Velvet Room? I say that because there was a line of someone saying they needed a drink and they responded by saying, well, let's check the bar. But also, if you look at them, they seem to be looking at this place like this is their first time here. So how did they come about finding out about this place? Who told them about this place? And again, what happened to Jay's finger? And if that was his missing finger, why did he have felt under the finger if this is his first time in the room? So, like I said up top, what an incredible episode. Looking back at the fact that they premiered all 3 episodes makes so much sense now because they are telling a particular story in this first half of the chapter. This episode was like a prime example of how well of an oiled machine this show has become and just how perfect the 3 of our leads are and how well they bounce off each other. Now, before wrapping up, let's take a look at my suspects after this episode. So there's definitely something off about V, and knowing she and Mabel had a falling out years ago and all of a sudden she magically appears after these recent murders. Now, obviously, we're led to believe that these 3 new billionaires, or at least one of these billionaires, has something to do with it, right? Or, similar to last year's introduction of the 3 actors, are these billionaires being positioned as one big red herring? Now, obviously, we don't have much to work with because we just met these characters, and them being labeled as the new mob by our trio, they have no tracksuits, they have no gold chains, but people that have wealth and power who can really control people and corrupt people. With that being said, we now know that there is a mayor in play who's looking to be reelected. We have police covering up murders and a dead doorman with dirt on some important people and a dead wannabe mobster. Look, it feels so good to be back with the show, and these first 3 episodes were great. I would argue that maybe these are some of the best back-to-back-to-back episodes that we've had in a long time. With that said, we have come to the conclusion of my breakdown of episode 3. Now, before we wrap up this breakdown, please do me a favor. If you enjoyed yourself, consider hitting that like button. Share this breakdown with anyone and everyone you know that loves talking about this show. More importantly, share your thoughts, your theories, your major takeaway from episode 1, 2, and 3, and what you all hope to see in the weeks ahead in the comments below. Now, you all can find my breakdown of episodes 1 and 2 in the description of this video or on the screen now if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on podcast. Don't forget, you all are awesome, stay safe, and I'll see you all on the next episode of Only Murders in the Building.